Hi guys. So have you ever had this feeling like there's always a problem? Because I have this. There always seems to be a problem. There's always feels like one problem ends and another begins, and there's never a break of more than a couple of days. At times I feel like it's kind of a joke, like this just doesn't ever stop, and it's not ever completely terrible in the grand scheme of things, but there's always just some bullshit going on that makes it hard to relax. And perhaps that's the case. Perhaps there really is always some bullshit going on, and that's why I can't relax. But I've started to get the feeling as well that maybe there's some kind of hierarchy of problems, and that whichever is our most significant problem at the time kind of informs our perspective on what is or isn't a problem, and fills that space. And I think that's a space that our brain seems to feel needs to be filled. I think we have some kind of innate sort of inclination or need for there to be a problem. I don't think it's unavoidable. I don't think that's something we can't override. But I think there is something in us that that I wouldn't say seeks out problems, but takes them and kind of extrapolates upon them and causes them to fill all available space. For example, you might have something going on. Say you're having some drama going on with your partner or something. You're disagreeing a lot over something. It's causing a lot of friction between the two of you. It seems like something that you can't really get past, you can't come to an agreement on this thing. It's causing you a lot of stress. It's making it hard to hang out. It's making it hard for you to get on. And you're thinking, this is a big problem in my life at the moment. And then something happens. Say your house gets broken into. Suddenly both of you stop giving a shit about this thing that you've been disagreeing upon, and you start wondering, why did someone break in? Did they didn't steal anything. Did someone break in because they wanted to hurt us? Did they want to do something really bad? That's really terrifying. It's someone following us. Why is someone breaking in? And this completely fills your world, and you realize the other thing that you were worrying about was kind of nothing. And then you find out, the police contact you and they say, we've found CCTV footage of this person trying to break in. We know who it was. It's a local fucking drug addict or whatever. They've been known for this. They've been doing this in other properties. They tried to break into 2 other properties that night. They heard someone come out and they ran away. And you go, okay, all right. I feel sort of better about that. Not thrilled, but okay. And maybe you feel okay for a couple of days, and you're like, yeah, that's a huge relief off our shoulders. We had this problem, and that feeling of relief will last for a couple of days, and you'll go, hey, let's enjoy everything. Let's enjoy each other's company. Let's enjoy our time, because we thought that there was this terrible situation and our lives were at threat, and now it's not so bad. So let's appreciate what we have. And you manage to do that for a little while, for a few days, maybe more, maybe a week or two. You manage to hold on to that feeling. And then something else comes up. You find out, you forget you have some unpaid loan from years ago, and you find out it's accumulated and you now owe like $5,000, and you're shitting yourself because you don't have it. And you're thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. This is going to fuck up all my plans. I was going to travel. I was going to set up my own little sort of side hustle or whatever. I can't do any of this stuff now. I haven't got any of this money. What a fucking nightmare. It's so out of order. It's so unfair. And you start to get ill in some way. You have some kind of problem with your stomach. It becomes hard to eat certain foods, and it's hard to focus on your job. You feel uncomfortable all the time physically. And And then you find out that one of your parents is dying, and suddenly you realise the debt wasn't ideal, but I could have paid this debt. And the thing with my stomach is really minor compared to, you know, whatever it is that my parent has that's killing them rapidly. And suddenly those problems seem much smaller in comparison. And this issue of your parent being ill fills up that entire space, as it should. It's a very serious problem. And these other things become smaller in comparison, and you worry and you worry and you worry, and then, you know, eventually it gets to a point where they really are dying, you know, they're right at the end, and then the period a year or so ago where they were just sort of dying in quotes, suddenly even that is diminished. And then eventually you end up with a real earth-shattering, unavoidable problem that no amount of Zen practice or philosophizing about it will change or help. It's just pure pain and you can't avoid it. But going back through that story, there's a whole series of problems that were ultimately able to be diminished, and the fact that they were diminished because something greater in scale and severity came along doesn't mean that they couldn't have been otherwise diminished. And not only that, but that feeling of relief that you had when you found out this bad situation, it wasn't what you thought, and you know, the threat is over. You have that feeling of relief. Just because that was brought about by circumstance, by the relief from this particular situation, doesn't mean you can't have that feeling anyway. Doesn't mean that feeling can't be brought about in other ways. And it's all an opportunity for mental exercise. Why can't you access that feeling? Why can't you access that feeling of relief all the time? Why can't you access that feeling of your problems not being that big in the grand scheme of things all the time? It's hard. It's hard to do that, especially when you're working hard every day, you're trying to accomplish certain things in your life, you're trying to obtain certain things that you have a right to want to obtain, that it's normal and healthy and natural to want to obtain. And I think it's easy to get tunnel vision. You know, there's things I'm getting really worked up about recently. I'm trying to learn to drive here, and it's really difficult in a second language. Kind of horrible, to be honest. Like, pretty stressful. Like, the language barrier is quite awkward, and also I don't think I'm necessarily picked the best school to go to, and you know, I don't know. It's been quite difficult, and it's so far already. Because I live outside the city, we have to go into the city, and I have to go with someone else and wait for their class as well. So it's 3 hours, so multiple nights a week after work when I'm tired, I want to relax, or I want to get other shit done, like do videos like this and make music and stuff. I have to go there for 3 hours and get like bollocked in a language I sort of half understand, and pay shitloads for something, you know, that I almost can't really afford. And it is quite, you know, like, I don't like it, and I keep thinking it's almost over, and then they keep saying, no, you know, you're not ready for the exam yet, you need more classes and this and that, and it feels like it's never going to end. And it's been this fucking long-winded drama, and once in a while I'm able to get perspective on this, and I kind of step back and I'm like, is this really that fucking bad? Like, you know, yeah, I don't have my free time in the evenings, it's annoying, whatever. Some of the teachers have not been very nice to me or whatever. I could just get in that car and have a laugh for 3 hours, you know. If I'd been released from prison, I would be like, this is like the loveliest experience in the world in comparison to being locked up inside, no freedom, no dignity, around a bunch of terrifying people, sitting in this car. This is a fucking dream. This is a pleasure. I'll sit in this car all day. Like, you know, if this is a big deal, then you're fucked, basically. It's never going to be the way you want it to. And what's the point in fighting it? Because that's what I've been doing. I've been fighting this experience, and every time, you know, I get some bad news or disappointment, I go home and I tell my girlfriend, I'm like, they told me I'm going to need to buy more. I just want this to end. Why? Just go, okay, I've got to buy more. Time to do this, you know, time to deal with this situation and just finish it. It's not a big thing. And when something else happens that is a bigger deal, bigger, not the biggest, this kind of just gets pushed to the side. And I know that if something terrible, something truly unthinkable happened, all of this would disappear into nothing, you know? Our dog almost got, right here actually, scumbag family with like 5 dogs, including a Staffy and a Bully XL, which I guess I talked about this in a previous video. It was all down there where it happened, basically. That was the wall that I jumped off. I should have come here to do the video, it would have been interesting. You know, and the dog, our dog, could have been killed by this dog. Maybe not, but it, you know, it seemed to us like that was, you know, what almost happened. And it would have been a fucking nightmare, like pure, just never-ending pain. But then, like, had my girlfriend died, it would have been even worse. And, you know, I don't know, like, if things can be put into perspective by other worse things happening, why can't they just be put into perspective, full stop? Why do we have to wait for something worse to happen before we feel better about the things that are happening to us? I guess most of this comes down to gratitude, and I think that's the challenge we all face. I was watching this thing about these hunter-gatherer tribes the other day, or this one hunter-gatherer tribe in Africa, and this fellow was asking them about life and all this stuff, and all their answers were just about meat. It was all just like, I feel good when we get meat. I like it when we catch a baboon and eat it. I like it when we have honey. I like it when we, you know, what's the biggest problem? And he's like, lions. And so it's all just totally straightforward stuff, you know, about their life. And in a way, I feel that the biggest problem we have in... Oi, oi. Where you going, son? Where you going? The biggest problem... Imagine being a snail, man. Fuck me. Awful. Pure torture. Can't go anywhere. Can't do anything, you know? Yeah, so the biggest problem we have, in a way, I think, is our... Not that we don't have, of course, you know, family members can die, things can happen, there's all sorts of real problems you can have in sort of modern, developed, civilized world. But sometimes on a day-to-day basis, I don't think we have stimulating or approachable problems. I think we have often problems that are much bigger than us and make us feel powerless. Like the government, or the future, or what happens when you die, or being stuck in like the corporate machine and feeling kind of like a slave and stuff. These things are so much bigger than you, they make you feel powerless. And they don't make you feel powerless in the way that like the threat of lions makes you feel powerless, because you can fight them and you can, you know, I don't know, like, and you're together with other people and you're dealing with this clear, obvious, objective problem. There's no two ways about it. Like, you know, you have to deal with this situation and you have to get food and you have to, and I'm not trying to romanticize it in a sort of glib way, but like there's something to it, to a life where you know exactly what your problems are and what you need to do, because sometimes I think for us the problems are all over the place, and some of them are self-created and some of them are imagined and some of them are a product of quite an unnatural lifestyle. And I think for people who have more straightforward problems, well, they do have that space where there kind of has to be a problem. There has to be something they're looking out for. It's natural, you know. We've evolved to look for problems, because if we're not looking for problems and trying to solve them, then we're much less likely, or would have been much less likely to survive, and probably still are much less likely to survive. It helps that we're on the lookout for problems all the time, but it's better sometimes if your problems are completely straightforward and at least to some degree manageable. At least, you know, you have a clue what you're dealing with and how to deal with it. You know, like, it's like a cycle for them. Like, go find somewhere where there's food, catch the food, kill it, eat it, be happy that you've got like a big haul, and then the next day or whenever they run out, wake up and think, all right, we need to go out again and find more food. And again, I'm not trying to say that's like definitely better than our lives or anything, but there's something cool about that, and sometimes we don't have that opportunity. So I sometimes think our biggest problem that we should face is this space, this space in our head that always wants to be filled with a problem, this part of us that can be pretty negative. And in general, just mental health and positivity, I think, is like, it's kind of like often the biggest battle that we face, and it's genuinely quite a difficult one. But when you see it as a battle, when you see it as your version of what they do on a daily basis, as your kind of fight, and as something that is legitimately a struggle, but one that you can attack, you can deal with it, you can find ways, you can find strategies, you're not powerless to deal with it. And when you see it like that, I think it's better. I feel like people talk about how modern life is meaningless because we don't have overarching sort of ideas about our place in the world, and you know, everything's sort of postmodern and lost meaning, and we don't have religion and we don't have spirituality and stuff. A lot of hunter-gatherer tribes don't have spirituality or religion. They have some kind of sense of identity, but it's a very localized sense of identity. And of course, well, I guess that doesn't necessarily negate it in any way, but I don't think that's the only thing that keeps them going in comparison to us and stops them from being, you know, depressed or anxious or whatever. I think sometimes it's also having something to direct their focus towards productively. And I think that in lieu of having a grander purpose, which is cool to have, you know, it's a great thing to have, but in lieu of that, still thinking of dealing with your own mind and fighting the malaise that can set in modern life can be your thing that you have to do, you know, your thing that gives you meaning in that regard. Yeah, I think that can be very helpful. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you're all doing well, looking after yourselves. Have a nice day.